We've just enjoyed Thanksgiving a couple of weeks ago, and in my mind that officially begins the holiday season, the Christmas season. And in my mind that is always a time where we think of family. And I think it's exciting when I talk about homeschooling that more and more we are not talking about just academics. We're talking about how families spend time together. And I've talked about this at some length about how, families are finding when they begin to homeschool, there's kind of like a relaxing, because they're no longer bound to that institutional schedule that puts so much pressure on families. And that's particularly true when we start celebrating the Christmas season. So had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you did. Good time with the family. I was reminded by some of my adult children that one of the things we did at Thanksgiving was we read that first Thanksgiving story. We talked about how God protected the pilgrims and brought them together with their Indian friends who helped them, and they thanked God and had a meal together. And we used to put 2 or 3 little kernels of corn on everybody's plate and said, okay, you gotta give a couple of things for what you're grateful for, what you're thankful for, because that's the reason that we're doing this. It's not just to eat turkey and watch football, although we do a little bit of that too. And now we move into the Christmas season. And one of the things that excites me is that there's a reason that typically homeschoolers tend to continue to hold the values of their parents, their families. And that is because they spend time together as a family. And one of the things we always did is it wasn't just a holiday season, it wasn't just a time to give gifts, but we spent time worshiping together. We always spent Christmas Eve, and we would read the Christmas story from the Gospel of Luke with our children and now with our grandchildren. And we used to read a little book with our children. We now read it with our grandchildren called Santa, Are You For Real? Kind of gives the historical backing for Santa Claus and how a church leader at the time supposedly gave money to the 3 daughters who had no money, so they couldn't get married. And so the story is that he threw gold in a little bag through the window. It landed in a stocking that was hung by the fireside to dry. And so supposedly that's how the thing started. So it's a great little story to focus on Jesus, but also tying that into some of our beliefs today. As we talk about how this is a great family time, we can worship together, we did lots of crafts. I remember building these plywood things that we painted with scriptures that we put up in the front yard, and we put lights on them, and all these kind of crafty things that homeschoolers love to do. And so it was a great time. I do think about how last year the Harvard professor talked about, with so many people keeping their kids at home, we were going to see this explosion of child abuse. It didn't happen. In fact, what happened is more and more families who were kind of forced to homeschool began to understand, this is not just good academically, this is good for our family. We get to spend some time together. We get to enjoy those relationships. And so what we're seeing is that homeschooling is not just an academic thing. In fact, homeschooling can be and has been restorative and healing for families. So I hope as you spend time with your families this holiday season, this Christmas season, that you will enjoy the fellowship of your family, that you'll talk about the reason for the season, the Lord Jesus, and you will enjoy being at home with your family. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for helping us keep Texas families free.